The bucket was heavy, and the water inside had turned gray from hours of mopping. Pushed it slowly across the marble floor of the concert hall, her shoulders aching from another long night. The building was empty now. The last of the audience had left hours ago, their expensive shoes clicking against the floors she would spend the next several hours cleaning. She was 52 years old and she had been doing this job for 11 years. Every night was the same. She arrived when the concerts ended and she left when the sun came up. In between, she scrubbed toilets, emptied trash cans, wiped down seats, and mopped floors that seemed to stretch on forever. Most people never noticed her. To them, she was just part of the building, like the walls or the ceiling, something that existed in the background but never really mattered, and honestly, after all these years, had started to believe that too. Tonight had been a big event. Some famous pianist from Europe had performed, and the hall had been packed with people in suits and gowns, had watched from the shadows as they walked in, laughing and holding glasses of champagne. They looked like they belonged in a different world, a world she had once dreamed of being part of. But dreams were for young people. At least, that is what she told herself. She dipped her mop into the bucket and continued working. The smell of cleaning chemicals filled the air. It was a smell she had grown used to over the years. It clung to her clothes and her hair. Sometimes, even after she showered, she could still smell it on her skin. Her hands were rough now. The skin was cracked and dry from years of harsh soaps and cold water. She remembered a time when her hands looked different, when her fingers were soft and quick, when they danced across piano keys like they had a life of their own. But that was a long time ago, another lifetime really. Was born in a small town in Spain, in a house with thin walls and a leaky roof. Her family did not have much money, but they had music. Her mother used to sing while cooking dinner, and her father played the guitar on warm summer nights. Music was everywhere in that house. It filled the empty spaces and made their small life feel bigger than it was. When was 6 years old, her grandmother took her to church one Sunday morning. There was an old piano in the corner, covered in dust. After the service ended, walked over to it and pressed one of the keys. The sound that came out was beautiful. It echoed through the empty church and made her heart feel something she could not explain. From that day on, she was obsessed. She begged her parents to let her learn. They could not afford lessons, but her grandmother found a retired music teacher who agreed to teach her for free. The woman's name was Mrs., and she saw something special in. She said the girl had a gift, a natural talent that could not be taught. By the time was 12, she was playing pieces that students twice her age struggled with. By 15, she had been accepted into a music conservatory in the city. It was the proudest moment of her life. She remembered her mother crying at the train station, holding her face and telling her to make them proud. And she did. For 3 wonderful years, studied piano like her life depended on it. She practiced until her fingers bled. She stayed up late learning new pieces and woke up early to practice them again. Her teachers said she had a future. They said she could perform on the biggest stages in the world. Then everything fell apart. Her father got sick. It started with a cough that would not go away, and within months he could barely get out of bed. The doctors said he needed treatment that cost more money than her family had ever seen. His mother worked 2 jobs, but it was not enough. The bills piled up. The debt grew. And one by one, the things they owned disappeared. First the furniture, then the car, then the house. Had no choice. She left the conservatory and came home. She got a job at a factory, packing boxes for 12 hours a day. The money was not much, but it helped. She told herself it was temporary, that once her father got better, she would go back to her music. But her father did not get better. He passed away on a cold night in February, holding his hand and telling her he was sorry. Sorry for getting sick. Sorry for ruining her dreams. She told him not to say that. She told him he had nothing to be sorry for, but deep down, a part of her died with him that night. After that, there was no going back. Her younger brother and sister still needed to be fed. Her mother was too broken to work, so became the provider. She worked whatever jobs she could find, cleaning houses, washing dishes, scrubbing floors. The piano became a distant memory, like a song she had heard once but could no longer remember. Years passed. Her brother grew up and moved away. Her sister got married and started her own family. Her mother passed peacefully in her sleep and was alone. She moved to America looking for a fresh start, but fresh starts are hard to find when you are middle-aged and have no degree and no connections. She found the job at Concert Hall by accident. She had been cleaning offices in the building next door, and one night the janitor at the concert hall quit without notice. They needed someone immediately and needed the work. It was supposed to be temporary, just a few weeks until they found someone else. That was 11 years ago. Now she spent her nights surrounded by music she could no longer play. She heard the rehearsals through the walls. She saw the performers walk by in their elegant clothes, carrying their instruments like precious children. And every night, after everyone left, she would stand in the empty auditorium and stare at the grand piano on the stage. It was the most beautiful instrument she had ever seen. Black and shining, like it was made from the night sky itself. World-famous pianists had played that piano. Their fingers had touched those keys. And sometimes, when the hall was completely empty and the lights were dim, would imagine herself sitting there, playing the music that still lived somewhere deep inside her. But she never did. She was just the cleaning lady, and cleaning ladies did not play pianos. They mopped floors and emptied trash cans and went home smelling like bleach. At least that is what she believed. She finished mopping the last section of the floor and stood up straight, pressing her hand against her lower back. The pain was getting worse these days. She was not as young as she used to be, but she still had a few more hours of work ahead of her. She looked up at the stage one last time. The piano sat there in the darkness, waiting. It had been waiting for 11 years. And tonight, something felt different. She did not know what it was. Maybe it was the concert she had heard earlier. Maybe it was the way the music had made her heart ache in a way it had not ached in years. Or maybe she was just tired of pretending that the person she used to be was gone forever. Whatever it was felt a pull, a quiet voice inside her that she had been ignoring for decades. It whispered to her now, soft but clear. Go to the piano. She shook her head and grabbed her mop. There was work to do. Dreams were for young people, and she was not young anymore. But the voice did not stop. It never stopped. It had been there all along, waiting for her to listen. And maybe, just maybe, tonight would be the night she finally did. Stood frozen in the middle of the auditorium, her mop still in her hand. The voice inside her head had not stopped. It kept repeating the same thing over and over again. Go to the piano. Go to the piano. She looked around the empty hall. The seats stretched out in front of her like a dark ocean. The exit signs glowed red in the corners. And up on the stage, sat under a single spotlight that someone had forgotten to turn off. It was almost like the piano was calling to her. She checked her watch. It was nearly 2 in the morning. The security guard, was probably asleep in his booth by now. He was a kind old man in his 70s who had worked at the concert hall for longer than anyone could remember. He never bothered. In fact, he barely noticed her at all. Most nights, he dozed off around midnight and did not wake up until his shift ended at 6. Had never done anything like this before. In 11 years, she had never touched that piano. She had looked at it thousands of times. She had dreamed about it, but she had never allowed herself to get close. Because getting close meant remembering, and remembering was too painful. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the weight of all those years pressed down on her chest so hard she could barely breathe. She thought about her father. She thought about Mrs., her old teacher, who had believed in her when no one else did. She thought about the girl she used to be. The girl who had played piano like it was the only thing that mattered in the world. That girl was still inside her somewhere. Could feel her stirring, waking up after a long, long sleep. Before she knew what she was doing, set down her mop. She wiped her hands on her uniform and started walking toward the stage. Her heart was pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. Her legs felt weak, like they might give out at any moment. She climbed the steps to the stage slowly. Each step felt like a mile. When she reached the top, she stopped and stared at the piano. Up close, it was even more beautiful than she remembered. The black surface gleamed under the spotlight. The keys were perfect, white and black, waiting to be touched. Sat down on the bench. Her hands were shaking. She placed her fingers on the keys, and for a moment she just held them there. The ivory felt cool against her skin, familiar, like greeting an old friend after many years apart. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she began to play. The first notes came out soft and uncertain. Her fingers stumbled over the keys like a child learning to walk. It had been so long, too long. She had forgotten so much. The music that used to flow through her like water now felt stuck, trapped somewhere deep inside. But she kept playing. She pushed through the mistakes and the hesitation. And slowly something started to change. The music began to come back, not all at once but piece by piece, like memories floating up from the bottom of a deep well. She played a piece by Chopin. It was one of the first songs Mrs. had taught her back when she was just a teenager with big dreams and soft hands. The melody was sad and beautiful, full of longing and loss. It matched the way felt perfectly. As she played, tears started rolling down her cheeks. She did not try to stop them, she just let them fall. All the pain she had buried for so many years came pouring out through her fingers. The death of her father, the dreams she had given up, the life she could have had. It all came out in the music, note by note, chord by chord. When she finished, the silence that followed was deafening. Sat there with her eyes closed, her chest heaving. She felt empty but also lighter, like she had been carrying a heavy stone for decades and had finally set it down. She looked around the empty auditorium. The seats were still empty. No one had heard her. No one knew what she had just done. And somehow that made it even more special. This moment was hers and hers alone. From that night on, everything changed. Every evening would do her cleaning work as usual. She would mop the floors and wipe down the seats and empty the trash cans. But now she worked faster, because she knew what was waiting for her when she finished. Around 2 in the morning, when Mr. was asleep and the building was completely silent, would slip into the auditorium. She would sit down at the and play, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 2. She played everything she could remember. Chopin. And slowly, the music that had been locked away inside her started to come back. Her fingers grew stronger. The calluses from years of scrubbing softened as new ones formed from playing. The stumbles and mistakes became less frequent. The music flowed more easily. It was like her hands remembered even when her mind had forgotten. Those late-night hours became the most important part of life. During the day, she was invisible. Just another cleaning lady that people looked past without seeing. But at night, alone on that stage, she was someone else. She was the girl who had dreamed of playing on the biggest stages in the world. She was the woman who had sacrificed everything for her family. She was an artist. No one ever found out. Mr. never woke up. The other staff never came in that late. Secret was safe. And in a strange way, she liked it that way. The music was not for anyone else. It was for her. It was her way of keeping the most important part of herself alive. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Kept playing. She learned new pieces by listening to the rehearsals during the day and practicing them at night. She challenged herself with harder and harder music. And every time she sat down at that piano, she felt the same thing. Gratitude. Gratitude for those stolen hours. Gratitude for the music that had never truly left her. But she also felt something else. A deep, quiet sadness. Because no matter how beautifully she played, no one would ever hear it. She would never perform for a real audience. She would never feel the warmth of applause. She would live her whole life with this incredible gift, and the world would never know. Sometimes, late at night after she finished playing, would sit on the stage and look out at the empty seats. She would imagine what it would be like if they were full, if hundreds of people were sitting there, watching her, listening to her. She would imagine standing up and taking a bow, hearing the applause wash over her like a wave. But then she would shake her head and push those thoughts away. That was a fantasy, a dream for someone else. She was 52 years old. She was a janitor, and janitors did not become concert pianists, not in the real world. So she kept her secret. She played for an audience of empty chairs and dim lights, and she told herself it was enough. It had to be enough. But deep down, in a place she rarely allowed herself to visit, wondered, what would happen if someone heard her? What would they think? Would they laugh at the cleaning lady who thought she could play piano, or would they hear what she heard when she played? The years of longing, the sacrifice, the love. She did not know, and she was too afraid to find out. So night after night, year after year, played in secret. The greatest performance the concert hall had ever seen, and no one was there to witness it. Not yet, anyway. Because sometimes life has a way of pulling secrets into the light, and its moment was coming. She just did not know it yet. 3 years had passed since first sat down in the middle of the night. 3 years of secret playing, 3 years of stolen moments, and in all that time no one had ever found out. Her secret was safe, or so she thought. It was the night of the annual gala. This was the biggest event of the year. Rich donors from all over the city came to eat fancy food, drink expensive wine, and listen to world-class musicians perform. The money raised at the gala kept the concert hall running for another year. It was important, very important. Had worked the gala every year since she started at the hall, but she had never worked it like this. Usually, she stayed in the back, cleaning up spills and taking out trash where no one could see her. But this year, they were short-staffed. 2 of the serving girls had called in sick, and the catering manager was desperate. So was given a white shirt, a black vest, and a tray of champagne glasses. Her job was simple: walk around the room, offer drinks to the guests, smile, be invisible. She did not want to do it. Being out there among all those people made her uncomfortable. She was used to the shadows, used to being unseen, but she needed the extra money. The winter had been hard, and her heating bill was higher than expected, so she swallowed her pride and put on the uniform. The gala was already in full swing when she stepped into the main hall. The room was decorated with flowers and candles. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting golden light over everything. Women in long dresses floated across the floor like colorful birds. Men in tuxedos stood in groups, laughing at jokes could not hear. She felt out of place immediately. Her shoes were old and scuffed. Her hands were rough and dry. No matter how nice the uniform looked, she still felt like what she was, a cleaning lady pretending to be something else. But she did her job. She walked through the crowd with her tray of champagne, offering drinks with a polite smile. Most people took the glasses without even looking at her. Some did not bother to say thank you. She was invisible just like always. Then she saw them. A group of young musicians had gathered near the bar. They were performers from the city symphony, and they looked like they owned the world. There were 4 of them, 2 women and 2 men, all in their late 20s or early 30s. They were laughing and talking loudly, clearly enjoying themselves. Recognized one of them. He was a cellist who had performed at the hall several times. He was handsome in a sharp, cold way, with slick-back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. She had seen him before, walking past her in the hallways without ever acknowledging her existence. She tried to avoid them. She changed direction and headed toward the other side of the room, but the catering manager spotted her and waved her over. "Take some drinks to that group by the bar," he said. "They've been waiting." She had no choice. She took a deep breath, picked up a fresh tray of champagne, and walked toward them. As she approached, the cellist was in the middle of telling a story. The others were hanging on his every word, stopped beside them and held out her tray. "Champagne?" she asked quietly. The cellist glanced at her, then looked away. He took a glass without saying anything and continued his story. The others did the same, was about to leave when she heard one of the women whisper something. "Is that the cleaning lady? Why is she serving drinks?" The cellist heard it too. He turned and looked at with an expression she knew too well. It was the look people gave to things that were beneath them, things that did not matter. "Well, well," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They really are desperate tonight, aren't they? They've got the janitor serving champagne." The group laughed, felt her face burn. She wanted to say something. She wanted to defend herself, but the words stuck in her throat. "Careful, everyone," the cellist continued, grinning. "Don't let her touch your instruments. Those mop hands might leave stains." More laughter, louder this time. A few people nearby turned to look, stood there frozen, her tray trembling slightly in her hands. One of the women in the group rolled her eyes. "Can you imagine? Spending your whole life scrubbing floors while real artists perform above you. What a sad existence." Did not respond, she could not. Her chest felt tight, her eyes stung. She turned and walked away as fast as she could without running. Behind her, she could still hear them laughing. She found a quiet corner near the kitchen and set down her tray. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them against the wall and took deep breaths, trying to calm herself down. It was not the first time someone had made fun of her. Over the years, she had heard plenty of comments, but something about tonight was different. Maybe it was the way they had looked at her, like she was less than human, like her entire life was a joke. She thought about the piano, about the hours she had spent playing in the dark, about the music that still lived inside her. Did they know? Could they ever understand what she had given up, what she had sacrificed? No, of course not. To them she was nothing, just a cleaning lady with rough hands and old shoes. She wiped her eyes and straightened her vest. She still had a job to do. She could not afford to lose this extra money, so she picked up her tray and went back out into the crowd. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, kept her head down and avoided the group of musicians. She served drinks and cleared plates and tried not to think about the humiliation burning in her chest. Around 9 o'clock, something strange happened. Was collecting empty glasses near the stage when she noticed a commotion near the entrance. People were whispering. Staff members were rushing back and forth. The event coordinator, a thin woman with a permanent frown, was talking frantically into her phone. Moved closer, curious. She caught bits and pieces of the conversation. "What do you mean he can't perform? The gala is in an hour. We have 500 people here." His heart skipped. She looked toward the stage. The grand piano sat there under the lights, waiting, but there was no performer. No one was warming up. No one was preparing. She grabbed one of the other servers as he passed by. "What's happening?" she asked. The young man looked stressed. "The pianist, the famous one from Vienna, he got sick, food poisoning or something. He's at the hospital. He can't perform." Felt her stomach drop. The whole gala depended on that performance. Without it, the donors would be disappointed. The fundraiser might fail. Everything the concert hall had worked for all year could fall apart. She looked at the stage again. The piano sat there, silent and waiting. The spotlight shone down on it like a question with no answer. Around her, chaos continued. The coordinator was on the phone, desperately trying to find a replacement. Other staff members were panicking. The donors were starting to notice that something was wrong. The evening was falling apart. And stood there invisible as always, watching it all unfold. But something was happening inside her, something she could not explain. The voice that had spoken to her 3 years ago, the one that had told her to go to the piano, was speaking again. Louder this time, more urgent. "You can do this." She shook her head. No, that was crazy. She was a janitor, a cleaning lady. She could not just walk up on that stage and play. People would laugh at her. They would mock her even more than they already had. But the voice did not stop. You have been waiting your whole life for this moment. Looked at the piano. She looked at the panicked faces around her. She thought about the cellist and his cruel words. She thought about all the years she had spent hiding in the shadows, believing she was not good enough. And then, before she could talk herself out of it, she started walking toward the stage. Feet moved on their own. She did not remember deciding to walk. She did not remember choosing to move toward the stage. It was like something else had taken over, something deep inside her that had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The crowd was still buzzing with confusion. People were checking their phones, whispering to each other, wondering what was going on. The event coordinator was still on her phone, her voice getting higher and more desperate with every passing second. No one was paying attention to the cleaning lady walking through the room. Until she reached the stage. Climbed the steps slowly. Her legs felt heavy, like she was walking through water. Her heart was beating so hard she thought everyone in the room must be able to hear it. When she reached the top of the stage, she stopped and looked out at the crowd. For a moment, no one noticed her. Then, one by one, heads started to turn. Whispers spread through the room like ripples in a pond. Who is that? Is that the janitor? What is she doing up there? The event coordinator looked up from her phone. Her eyes went wide. She started pushing through the crowd, waving her arms. Ma'am, you can't be up there. This is a private event, security. Two guards near the entrance started moving toward the stage, saw them coming. She knew she only had a few seconds. Her whole body was shaking. Every instinct told her to run, to get off the stage before she embarrassed herself even more. But then she looked at the piano. It sat there in the spotlight, beautiful and patient. The same piano she had played in secret for 3 years. The same keys she had touched 1,000 times in the darkness. It was waiting for her. It had always been waiting for her. Walked to the bench and sat down. The room went silent, completely silent. 500 people held their breath, watching the cleaning lady in the white shirt and black vest sit down at the grand piano like she belonged there. The security guards reached the edge of the stage. One of them stepped forward, ready to pull her away. But something made him stop. Maybe it was the look on her face. Maybe it was the way her hands hovered over the keys. Whatever it was, he froze. Closed her eyes, she took a deep breath, and then she began to play. The first note rang out clear and pure. It floated through the silent room and touched something in every person who heard it. Then came the second note, and the third. And suddenly, the music was flowing like a river that had been for decades and was finally set free. She played Chopin, the same piece she had played on her first night at the piano 3 years ago, but this time it was different. This time there was no hesitation, no stumbling, just pure, raw emotion pouring out of her fingers and into the keys. The music filled the concert hall. It rose up to the chandeliers and bounced off the marble walls. It wrapped around every person in the room and held them tight. No one moved. No one spoke. They just listened. Did not see any of it. Her eyes were closed. In her mind, she was not in the concert hall anymore. She was back in Spain in the little church where she had first touched a piano. She was in Mrs. living room, learning her first scales. She was at the conservatory, practicing until her fingers bled. She was holding her father's hand on the night he died. All of it came out in the music. Every joy, every sorrow, every sacrifice, every dream she had buried and every hope she had given up. It was all there in every note, in every chord, in every moment of silence between the sounds. In the crowd, something was happening. People were crying. Men in expensive suits wiped their eyes with silk handkerchiefs. Women in designer gowns let tears roll down their cheeks without caring about their makeup. Even the security guards stood frozen, their eyes glistening. The cellist who had mocked her earlier stood near the bar. His champagne glass hung forgotten in his hand. His face had gone pale. He watched play with an expression that was part shock, part shame, and part something else. Something like awe. He had studied music his whole life. He had trained at the best schools. He had performed with the finest orchestras. But in all his years, he had never heard anyone play like this. This was not just technique. This was not just skill. This was something deeper, something that could not be taught or learned. It came from a place that most musicians never found. Played for almost 15 minutes. She did not rush. She let the music breathe. She let it speak. And when she finally reached the last movement, she poured everything she had left into those final notes. The piece built to its climax. The notes grew louder and more intense. Hands flew across the keys, her body swaying with the rhythm. And then, with one final, thundering chord, it was over. Silence. For a long, terrible moment, there was nothing. Sat at the piano with her eyes still closed, her chest heaving, her hands trembling on the keys. She did not know what was happening. She did not know if people were laughing at her or staring at her in disgust. She was afraid to open her eyes. Then she heard it. It started with one person, a single pair of hands clapping somewhere in the back of the room, then another, and suddenly the whole room exploded. 500 people rose to their feet. The applause was deafening. It crashed over like a wave, so loud and so powerful that she could feel it in her chest. People were cheering. They were shouting. They were crying. Opened her eyes. She looked out at the standing crowd and could not believe what she was seeing. These were the same people who had looked past her all night. The same people who had taken champagne glasses from her hand without saying thank you. Now they were on their feet, clapping for her like she was the most important person in the world. She did not know what to do. She had never taken a bow before. She had never stood in front of an audience. So she just sat there, her hands still on the keys, tears streaming down her face. The event coordinator pushed through the crowd and climbed onto the stage, but she was not angry anymore. Her face was wet with tears. She walked over to and took her hand. "That was incredible," she whispered. "Who are you?" Looked at her. For a moment she did not know how to answer. Who was she? She was a cleaning lady, a janitor, a woman who had spent her whole life in the shadows. But she was also something else, something she had almost forgotten. "I am a pianist," she said quietly. "I have always been a pianist." The coordinator squeezed her hand and helped her stand, turned to face the audience. The applause had not stopped. If anything, it was getting louder. People were pushing forward, trying to get closer to the stage. Phones were out everywhere, recording everything. In the middle of the crowd spotted the cellist. He was not clapping. He just stood there, staring at her with an expression she could not read. Their eyes met for a brief moment, did not look away. She did not feel angry at him anymore. She did not feel humiliated. She felt free. For the first time in over 30 years, felt like herself. The real her, not the cleaning lady, not the invisible woman who mopped floors and emptied trash cans. The girl who had sat down at an old piano in a dusty church and fallen in love with music. That girl had never really gone away. She had just been waiting, waiting for this moment, waiting to be heard. And now, finally, the whole world was listening. By the next morning, life had changed forever. She did not know it yet. She had gone home after the gala, her mind spinning, her heart still racing. She had not slept at all. She just lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. The music, the applause, the tears on strangers' faces. It all felt like a dream, a beautiful, impossible dream. But it was not a dream. And by the time the sun came up, the whole world was about to find out. Someone at the gala had recorded her performance on their phone. They posted it online with a simple caption: "Cleaning Lady Stuns High Society Gala with Incredible Piano Performance." Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times. By noon, it had been viewed by over 1 million people. By evening, it was everywhere. Phone started ringing before she even knew what was happening. Reporters wanted to interview her. Television stations wanted her on their morning shows. Record labels wanted to sign her. Concert halls from around the world wanted to book her. The cleaning lady who played piano had become an overnight sensation. She did not know how to handle any of it. For the first few days, she did not answer her phone at all. She just sat in her apartment, overwhelmed and confused. This was not supposed to happen. She was 55 years old. She was a janitor. Famous pianists were young and beautiful and trained at the best schools. They were not middle-aged women with rough hands and aching backs. But the world did not seem to care about any of that. People were moved by her story. They saw something in her that went beyond age or background or appearance. They saw truth. They saw someone who had sacrificed everything and still held onto her dream. And that was something everyone could understand. After a week of hiding, finally answered one of the calls. It was from a woman at a major concert venue in the city. She spoke softly and kindly, and she did not push or pressure. She just said that they would be honored to host's first official performance whenever she was ready. Did not say yes right away. She asked for time to think. The woman said, "Of course, take all the time you need." That night went back to the concert hall, not to play, just to think. She walked through the empty hallways, past the marble floors she had mopped so many times, past the velvet seats she had dusted, past the brass railings she had polished until they shone. This place had been her second home for over a decade. It held so many memories, so much of her life. She found Mr. in his booth, awake for once. He looked up when he saw her and smiled. "I saw the video," he said. "Everyone saw the video." Sat down across from him. "Did you know?" she asked. "All those nights I was playing, did you know?" The old man chuckled. "Of course I knew. You think I was really sleeping all those times. I heard you, every single night. I just never said anything because I figured you needed that time for yourself." Felt tears prick her eyes. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Mr. shrugged. "It wasn't my secret to tell. Besides, I knew someday the world would hear you. I just didn't know when." They sat in silence for a while, then asked the question that had been weighing on her heart. "Do you think I should do it? The concert, I mean. They want me to perform, for real, in front of thousands of people." Mr. looked at her with kind, wise eyes. "What do you think?" Did not answer right away. She thought about her father, about how proud he would have been. She thought about her mother who had worked so hard and never complained. She thought about all the years she had spent hiding, believing she was not good enough. "I think I'm scared," she said finally. "I've spent my whole life invisible. What if I fail? What if people realize I'm not as good as they thought?" Mr. leaned forward. "You've already done the hardest thing. You walked onto that stage when everyone was watching and you played your heart out. That took more courage than most people will ever have in their entire lives. Everything after that is just extra." She thought about his words for a long time, and slowly something shifted inside her. The fear was still there. It would probably always be there. But underneath the fear there was something stronger. Hope. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of belief in herself. 2 weeks later gave her notice at the concert hall, but she did not leave right away. She asked if she could work one more shift, one last night of mopping and cleaning and polishing. The managers thought she was crazy, but they agreed. On her final night, walked through the building slowly. She touched the walls. She ran her fingers along the velvet seats. She stood in the middle of the auditorium and looked up at the chandeliers, remembering all the nights she had played in secret beneath them. When she finished her rounds, she went to find Mr. one last time. He was in his booth, pretending to read a newspaper. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." He stood up and hugged her. "Go make us proud," he whispered. 1 month later, walked onto the stage of the concert hall for the second time. But this time, she did not come through the back entrance. She did not wear a cleaning uniform. She walked through the front doors, past the velvet ropes, and onto the stage where a spotlight waited for her. The seats were not empty anymore. 3,000 people filled the auditorium. They had come from all over the world to hear the cleaning lady play. Cameras flashed. People whispered. The air was thick with anticipation. Walked to the piano and sat down on the bench. She looked out at the sea of faces. For a moment the fear came back. Her hands trembled. Her heart raced. Then she saw something in the front row. A single red rose lying on an empty seat. There was a small card attached to it. She could not read the words from where she sat, but she knew what it said. It was from her brother back in Spain. He had sent it with a message she had read that morning. "Papa would be so proud. We all are. Play for him tonight." Took a deep breath. She placed her fingers on the keys, and before she played, she leaned into the microphone and spoke. "For most of my life, people looked at me and saw a cleaning lady, someone invisible, someone who did not matter, and for a long time I believed them. I thought my dreams were gone. I thought it was too late." She paused and looked out at the audience. "But I want you to know something. It is never too late. No matter how old you are, no matter how many years have passed, no matter how many people have told you that you are not good enough, your dream is still alive inside you. It is waiting for you to find it again." She turned back to the piano. "I played in secret for years, for an audience of empty chairs. Tonight I play for all of you. But more than that, I play for everyone who has ever been told they are too old, too poor, too ordinary to do something extraordinary. This music is for you." She closed her eyes. She pressed down on the keys, and the music began. It filled the concert hall like sunlight filling a dark room. It touched every heart, every soul, every person who had ever dared to dream. And when the final note faded into silence, 3,000 people rose to their feet. Stood up and took a bow. Tears streamed down her face. But for the first time in her life, they were not tears of sadness or longing. They were tears of joy. Because had finally found what she had been searching for all along. Not fame, not applause, not recognition. She had found herself. And that was worth more than anything in the world.